Hey, what's going on, guys? With the upcoming league that's coming around the corner, I wanted to talk about a Perforate build that I've been working on for the past few days or so. And while the damage isn't really out of this world, I think it's actually a hardcore solo self-found viable build that is still pretty decent. And plus you get extra bonus points for using a hipster ability. So first we'll start off with the skills. On a budget setup, you'll just be using Perforate with Impale, Brutality, Multi-Strike. I went with Fortify just for the extra defense. I didn't want to have to worry about constantly having to keep it up. I just wanted it to be up all the time. So I put Fortify in there, and melee physical damage. If you didn't have a 6-link, it would be kind of a tough one to pick. You could maybe pull out melee physical damage or Fortify, and then just have Fortify on your Leap Slam and rely on that to keep your Fortify up. If you're softcore, it doesn't really matter. I guess you could just take it out completely and run with the other 5. Then we have Blood Rage here, which just gives you the Frenzy charges and extra attack speed. Then we have Pride, Flesh and Stone, and Dread Banner. And Assassin's Mark, which I guess if you wanted to, you could just self-cast that on bosses for the time being. And then we have Vol Molten Shell linked to cast when damage taken. We're also using Vol Ancestral War Chief, which we have disabled right now, but we can enable that just to see what our damage would look like. And we'll keep that enabled for now. For early game items, you could just use any good base armor / evasion rating pieces of gear. For your chest, for your legs, for your boots, for your gloves. And for weapons, I actually found that Prismatic Eclipse Twilight Blades work really well if you just roll 2 red sockets and 1 green socket on each weapon. If you don't have these, the Scava rather, Gladiuses work really well too, and I think, as a matter of fact, they are damage boost, but I think they might be a little bit harder to come by. These Prismatic Eclipse Twilight Blades are pretty common. I usually find a lot of them every league, so if you're in solo self-found, you shouldn't have too much trouble coming across, honestly, either one of those swords, but the Prismatic Eclipses especially are really common. For the rest of the gear, I just have things like steel rings with flat fizz, some resistances and life, and these jewels are just crit multi and maximum life. Nothing crazy here on the jewels for early game. As for the flasks, we're just running a granite flask for the extra armor, a jade flask for more armor, because of the, what notable is this? Because of the iron reflexes notable we're taking, or keystone rather. And we have an Onslaught Flask, which we don't even have enabled, just because, I didn't want to buff the damage too much. And then we have a Life Flask and a Quartz Flask, which you, I don't know, you could switch that out for something else if you wanted to. When it comes to your skill tree, you're going to be grabbing things like Crit Chance and Crit Multi. You'll have some Block Chance with dual-wielding nodes here and here. You'll have more Crit Multi over here for the late game. We have increased Fortify effect here and here that you'll grab. And you'll just be grabbing life where you can. And obviously you'll be grabbing the Impale nodes because this is an Impale build. For the early game version of this build, you'll be grabbing mostly the same nodes, except you'll opt out of the sword nodes over here with the crit multi. You'll grab more dual wielding nodes over here, pick up the reduced mana reservation here, and grab more life up here. But just about everything else stays the same. And as the title suggests, we'll be going with a champion for our ascendancy. The nodes that I chose to go with were Unstoppable Hero for the extra armor, cannot be stunned when you have Fortify, which is great, and you just get more attack speed while you have Fortify. Master of Metal is a gimme for the extra Impale, for the added armor you get, and the added physical damage you get per Impale on an enemy. And lastly, I grabbed the Conqueror for 10% reduced damage taken if you've taunted an enemy recently, and also the Worthy Foe, so I don't have to worry about accuracy rating. So for your in-game gear here, you're going to want to get upgraded jewel foils, and these ones are 569 physical DPS a piece, which is, I know, really high, but if you're playing a character for an entire league and trying to min-max it to the best of its abilities, these aren't really, they're not out of this world. It might be a little bit harder for you to do in solo self-found, but if you're playing Trade League, it's definitely doable. Now, as for your normal items like your helmet, body armor, gloves, boots, so on, those are just going to be the same exact items you're wearing early game, but just better. So just more life, more resistances, maybe some more stats that you want to specifically add on there for your character. And the ring here is the Mark of the Elder Steel Ring, which gives you increased attack damage if your other ring is a Shaper item. The other ring here is a Shaper item, with level 12 Assassin's Mark on hit when you hit a rare or unique enemy. So these two things together are actually a pretty significant damage boost for you, and it also gets rid of having to manually cast Assassin's Mark. The Soul Tether Belt would be a nice upgrade here. I know it got nerfed, but it should still be pretty decent. And as a chase item, you could go for a Watcher's Eye with impales you inflict last 2 additional hits while using Pride. There are quite a few other ones that would work really well too. It doesn't have to be specifically this one, but I think this one would be the best one for this build. So as you go into the end game, there's a lot more things you could do to make this character much stronger if you want to put the time into doing so or spending the currency on the character. You could go with Awaken Multi-Strike and Awaken Melee Physical Damage. We can switch that right now. You can also go with the Dread Banner, Pride, Flesh and Stone, and the Enlighten support. And going with this setup allows you to opt out of the nodes on your tree that reduce the mana reservation of these skills, which just allows you to spec into more damage if you want to do. And then here we have the Assassin's Mark from the ring, which will enable as well to get a more accurate read on the damage that you could be doing. And if we go back to the tree here, we'll switch to the one where we're using the sword nodes over here. That puts us at around 7.2 million DPS. And this is with what is this, Vault Ancestral War Chief up, so keep that in mind. But we don't have Onslaught on, so you could put Onslaught on if you wanted to. It gives you an extra, I don't know, 600,000 DPS. And then the Pride Aura effect, this is just the initial effect, but if you're at maximum effect, that puts you at around 9.1 million DPS. And this is, best case scenario. This is on the Shaper Guardian boss right here. But yeah, this is best case scenario with Frenzy Charges, Onslaught, your crit chance is lucky, all that stuff. And obviously with some pretty good in-game gear and a Watcher's Eye. But you can see that the damage itself is, I think, respectable considering that you have, 39% block chance, you have 46,000 armor, 199% increased life from your tree, and you also have a bunch of increased Fortify effect on you from these nodes on the tree that you're grabbing here and here. I think if you wanted to, you could opt into a build that uses this skill and uses a shield instead. But when I was messing around with that, the damage was significantly lower that way. And so yeah, you could do it. I just feel like at that point, you're probably better off playing something else. I also haven't looked into cluster jewels much for this build. I think that there might be some cluster jewel possibilities that could boost the damage of this build up to a higher numbers, but that's something that I could leave to you guys to play around with if you wanted to. As far as leveling goes, I don't want to get into too much detail about leveling this character, because I think you could probably level it a bunch of different ways. But I think maybe using something like Vol Double Strike to help with bosses and some, Ancestral War Chief and stuff like that to help out would be decent, and I think is pretty stereotypical with lots of melee leveling builds. I also want to look at this build with the new Corrupting Fever gem. I think it would be interesting to see if every single spike from Perforate adds a stack of Corrupting Fever. And if it does, how fast would you be able to get those stacks up on an enemy? And that about wraps it up for this video, guys. I'll put the Path of Building link in the description below, so you guys can check it out if you're interested in playing this build. Make sure you check out my other video where I go over some build ideas for the new skills like Exsanguinate, Reap, and Corrupting Fever. And don't forget to follow me over on Twitch where I'll be streaming this upcoming league. If you like this video or found it helpful, make sure to let me know by giving it a thumbs up. And be sure to subscribe for more gaming related content.